I was told to sit in the corner. Not the left side near the bride. Not the right where the groom's folks sat all polished and proud. Not even the church pews with the rest of the family. Just the corner. The folding chair by the fire extinguisher. Tucked up beside a caterer's broom closet and a dusty ficus that had seen better Sundays. Now, I've been through a lot in my life. Loss, labor, loneliness. But sitting as somebody's footnote at my own granddaughter's wedding, that cut sideways. Sharp and quiet. The kind of pain that didn't swell right away, just sank in slow like cold into cracked tile. The program sat in my lap, thick with gold foil and spelling errors. Her name, Tasha Noel Walker, all in script. His name, Josiah C. Baker, blocked out in bold. Plenty of names listed on that paper. Bridesmaids, deacons, even a woman titled honorary aunt who I'd never met. Bless her spirit. But not mine. Not Mrs. Ora Mae Jerome. Not Grandma. Like I was just the church custodian who forgot to move the chairs back after Bible study. I sat there in my sage green dress, the one I'd saved 6 months to buy on layaway, hand-stitched embroidery. I'd added little pearls myself, one by one. Sitting at the same kitchen table where I taught Tasha how to spell her middle name. My hair was wrapped neat beneath a deep green gel sash, pressed tight. I even got my nails done for the occasion. Soft pink with a little gold, real tasteful. It didn't matter. A woman from the groom's side sat 2 rows ahead of me, glanced back once with that practiced charity smile. I returned it, steady and sweet. Ain't no sense in making other folks' rudeness mess with your spine. Organ music floated through the speakers. That slow Louvin Brothers hymns everybody thinks they invented. Even though it ain't been fresh since '74. The preacher nodded solemnly. The crowd rustled. Babies wiggled. Phones buzzed in purses nobody bothered to silence. Then the double doors at the back creaked open. And baby, there she was. Tasha Noel Walker, floating down the aisle like sugar and sunlight stitched into satin. I couldn't breathe, couldn't speak. Could only clutch that raggedy little program in my lap, like it might anchor me in the moment. She looked like joy dressed in ivory. Hair curled into soft waves, little sparkles scattered down her shoulders like dew. Veil pinned just right, gown hugging all the parts we'd prayed through puberty. She smiled. Lord, she smiled so bright I forgot all about the chair I was in. But then my eyes shifted. And that's when everything started to unravel. Because when the groom, Josiah Charles Baker, turned around and saw her, he looked right past his bride and locked dead in on me. Not a glance, not a flicker. Not a polite scan of the audience. No, child. He saw me. His lips parted. His hands, Lord, his hands started trembling. The best man elbowed him like, snap out of it, bro. But Josiah didn't blink. Then he dropped the box. Right there in front of God, the pastor, and all them flashbulbs going off like confession ain't private no more. The ring box hit the hardwood with a tiny click, soft but final. Like it meant something. Folks gasped quiet. Tasha paused mid-step. My heart, ... My heart went still. And what scared me wasn't that he stared at me like a ghost. It was that I recognized the way his eyes looked, ... because I'd seen them before. Just not on him. I leaned forward without realizing. The woman next to me shifted like she thought I might faint. I waved her off. No, ma'am. I was remembering. Not him, but that face. That panic mixed with guilt. That jawline trying not to tremble. I'd seen that once on a porch swing almost 30 years ago. On a night that never made it into family prayer. The groom blinked again, then finally looked back at his bride like he'd shaken something loose in his spirit. He bent to grab the ring box, but clumsily, awkward, like his hands no longer worked. When he opened it, the ring was still there, glinting in the light like nothing had happened. But something deep, something old. And baby, that wedding may have kept marching on like everything was fine, but I knew right then. That boy knew me. And not because I was Tasha's grandma. He knew me from something before. What did he see? That question, ... It burned hotter than the corner I was sitting in. Service went on, vows, tears, communion, but my ears were buzzing. I couldn't hear the preacher. Couldn't even hear Taisha when she said, "I do." Because all I could hear was the rustle of a paper from years ago, a letter I once hid, a name I never said out loud, hands clutching a hospital form. Marcus's face, young and guilty, whispering, "Don't tell nobody, Ma, please." And Lord help me, I didn't. By the reception, I was halfway sure I was losing my mind. Say what you want about old age. It don't blur memory as easy as folks think. Sometimes it sharpen things too clear. I watched Josiah across the room during the first dance. He kept glancing over his bride's shoulder, and then his eyes would dart. To me, he knew who I was. But that was impossible, wasn't it? Because the child? No, it couldn't be. I had to be wrong. Aunt Shine used to say, "Ain't nothing more dangerous than a memory with unfinished business." Now, I was staring at unfinished business in a linen suit and polished shoes. Back at the guest tables, the cake had been sliced, rice had been thrown, and little girls with twisted pigtails were chasing bubbles by the foyer, squealing and stumbling. The air smelled like catered barbecue and perfume too expensive for the bride's budget. I stayed near the wall, pretending like I needed to watch over the gift basket table. That's when she came. Tasha? My baby. My legacy. Still glowing like heaven spilled onto earth, only now her makeup smudged a little from all the happy tears and heat. She carried her bouquet loosely, like it weighed her hand down more than her heart. "Nana," she said. And Lord, how long had it been since she called me that? My chest ached with the soft sound of it. I smiled. Steady smile. "Yes, baby." She pulled up a chair beside me. Two of the servers side-eyed her, like maybe she wasn't supposed to park it over in trash territory. She ignored them. "Everything okay?" she asked, voice low, sweet. I could see it then, her mother in those eyes. My daughter-in-law, Camille. But there was still something else. Something older. From my side, "I'm fine," I said. "You looked like a painting up there." She bit her lip, then placed her hand on mine. "Are you mad at how they seated you?" That question? Phew! It knocked the breath sideways. I laughed. Real gentle. "No, baby. Folding chairs got a right to the wedding too." She didn't laugh. Camille said, she swallowed. She said photographers were already tight on space, and the pastor had the pews arranged for symmetry, and I patted her hand. "It's okay, sugar." She didn't look convinced. And then she whispered it. "You know, Josiah's birth story is kinda complicated, right?" I blinked. "What you mean?" She looked away. He was adopted, technically. His dad used to say they took him in during college. Long story. I figured you maybe. Never mind. Never mind. That word loitered between us. Baby, my stomach dropped clean to my Sunday flats. She kept talking, eyes scanning the dance floor again. He hadn't met a lot of his birth family. Honestly, he won't talk about it much. But when he saw you, she paused. He said you looked like someone. I wanted to faint. Instead, I sat up straighter and looked that child in the eyes. Oh, baby, I said, trying not to let my voice shake. I think we both got stories missing pages. She leaned in. What are you saying? But I didn't answer. Because right then, someone across the room called for the groom. He turned, and his gaze met mine one last time before the cake cutting. He nodded. Just a nod. But it said everything. By the time I got home that evening, a full hour before the after-party even hit rhythm, I was unraveling inside. I boiled some tea I never drank, just sat there in my kitchen, lights low, Bible open to a bookmarked psalm about deliverance I couldn't focus on. That boy's face haunted me. Those eyes, baby. That mouth structure. And most of all, that freeze. The moment he looked up and saw me, something cracked in his spirit, and the ring fell. That's not nothing. That's legacy meeting consequence. That's time folding back on itself, like laundry ain't done. And that's when I pulled open my kitchen drawer. The one behind the bag clips and expired coupon. There it was. An envelope. Yellowed edges curled from humidity and guilt. Addressed in handwriting so familiar my eyes burned. It read, "For her future?" My hands shook. I went to the guest room and sat on the edge of the bed. Opened the flap. Inside, a copy of a birth certificate, without a printed surname. Dated 28 years ago. Father, not listed. But that mother's name? Lord. That name grabbed my breath and didn't let go. Latasha Renee Green. She was Marcus's girlfriend during his second year of college. Pretty girl, soft voice, eyes too kind for the world. I'd used to pick her up from the bus stop when Marcus didn't call her back. Brought her soup when she caught the flu. Pretended not to notice when she winced getting out the car one December. And then one spring, Marcus came to my house with his face low and his gut guilt. Said, "Ma, she pregnant? But we ... can keep it." I looked him dead in the eye. Told him that baby wasn't no mistake. He said she was moving across state. Said her family didn't want no Jerome Beatty involved. Said he signed something ... but didn't look at it twice. She left town soon after. I never saw her again. Until she popped up years later, alone, child in tow, and a look on her face that said she'd been living in an apology ever since. She came to my porch, stood there like a statue for 5 straight minutes before she knocked. I let her in. She told me the whole story over warm cornbread and peppermint tea. "This baby, it's Marcus's," she said. "I ain't here to beg," she whispered. "But if anything ever happens to me, I want someone who knew his father to guide him." We talked. We cried. She pressed the envelope in my hand and said, "Don't open it unless you have to." And then ... weeks later, she died. I never saw the boy again. Until today. I clutched that envelope so hard my knuckles ached. I ran my fingers over that baby's birth date, that old corner ink blot. I needed to be sure. Next to the name, a handwritten note in the margin. "He's got Marcus's eyes." Then I knew for sure. That groom, that boy who dropped the ring the minute he saw me, baby, that was my grandson. Marcus's firstborn. The one he denied. The one I buried in my past so deep, I prayed over the soil. And now, he'd come back. I must have sat in that guest room for a full hour, paper in my lap, memory running like a Sunday morning tape reel. Tea'd gone cold, my feet'd gone numb, but my head, My head was burning with all the things I'd never said and the truths I refused to write down. That birth certificate, baby, ... It wasn't just a piece of fading ink. It was the receipt. For silence. For sacrifice. For all the ways I tried to protect my son and still ended up burying pieces of myself. 28 years. I lived like I ain't know that child existed. Even when I looked up and saw a certain face on TV or in church programs, wondering if I caught a glimpse of her. Wondering if that boy was somewhere in the crowd. Under the vast sky, he grew and became the man who married Tasha. Shocked, I realized Tasha married her cousin, Marcus's child. Feeling unwell, I sought guidance in my Bible. The porch light flickered as night fell. The doorbell rang a soft ding, perhaps a confrontation. Josiah Charles Baker, the groom, stood there, needing to talk. His voice, like Marcus's, was deep with grief. We sat in silence before he asked if I raised Tasha. He desired the world for her and sensed I knew something. He had dreamed of my face since age 12 in foster homes. His birth certificate lacked a father's name. And a caseworker mentioned a lost contact list. Tears stung my eyes. They don't need to know we're blood. I leaned back. They what? They don't need to know we're blood. My hands twitched slightly. You mean you want it secret? He nodded. Simpler? Safer. Safer. From what? I asked. From breaking her heart. Josiah rubbed his temple. She might never trust me if she knew I kept this. That you and I got history she ain't aware of. I swallowed. History she married. He froze. I let the words hang. That child, Taisha Knoll, is your second cousin, Josiah. Far enough for the state not to blink, but close enough for sin to whisper. He clamped his eyes shut, then breathed through his fingers. My mama told me if I ever found out where I came from, it would undo everything. I stared at the birth certificate still sitting on the armrest. Maybe she was right. But maybe, ... I exhaled. God don't uncover things to punish. Maybe he does it to cleanse. He laughed bitter. You saying this is grace showing up? I smiled faintly. It ain't ever showed up neat, Beatty, but it do show up mighty. He looked like a man swallowing salt. Finally, he stood. You're gonna tell them? I didn't answer at first. Then I rose slow. If I tell them now, ... I break hearts. If I let you tell them, you'd lie. His chin dropped. So. He said it like that word could make air disappear. So. So what? So love lives anyway. So let's roll the dice, marry into silence again. I looked toward the window. Rain had begun tapping lightly, like old secrets scratching to be let in. So, I said it out loud finally. So you gone? Come back tomorrow morning. And we all gonna eat breakfast like a family should. He nodded slow, barely breathing. Bring her, I said. Bring Tasha. And bring your truth. I can't. You can, and you will. Maybe not today. That ring didn't fall out of fear. It fell out of recognition. He looked away. You saw more than your bride when you turned? I said. You saw me. He turned and opened the door but paused before stepping out. Ms. Ora ... Yes, child. What if she hates me for being ... double quotes, he swallowed. A blood-borne lie? She won't. How you know? I walked toward him, kissed his cheek like when Marcus was small. 'Cause baby ... even lies come from love sometimes. It's the telling later that shows your worth. He nodded and left. The door clicked shut as I leaned back against it. I looked at the paper again. Birth name, Josiah Baker Green. Mama, Latasha Green. Father? Handwritten afterthought. He's got Marcus's eyes. 2 days later, Tasha came first, alone. She sat beside me and handed me a photo. Old, wrinkled. A picture of her father, Marcus, and Josiah. College photo? Smiling. I found it in Daddy's old box of campaign mailers. You knew? I asked. She shrugged. He came clean. Said you're my help explain. You always were the one hiding truth in cake batter. I chuckled. Old habits die hard. Was it true? About the baby? Josiah being blood? I held her hand. It was true before he knew it. And it's still true now. She stared ahead. Do you think God put us together anyway? Love don't draw lines the way folks think. Do you still love him? I love the truth more. But yes. Still yes. We rocked in silence. Can we try again, Nana? Not just the marriage part. The family part too. Yes, baby, I whispered. We got cleaning still to do. Before my granddaughter's wedding, there was a day I begged the Lord for another chance not to let my son Marcus throw his life away. Marcus always wanted power. Said his last name didn't carry weight, but his ambition would. And Latasha, bless her sweet spirit, that girl had the kind of kind eyes that softened you without a skin. Petite, a little shy, but smart. Always carried her books tight to her chest, like she was protected more than knowledge. Her voice was warm, molasses, steady, never loud. I liked her. Not that Marcus ever cared what I thought. He brought her home one Christmas, for 5 minutes. Wouldn't even let her stay for pie. Said they had plans, then rushed her off like she was some secret he didn't want me blessin'. But 2 months later, he was knocking on my door in the rain, soaked through and shaken. Ma, he said, voice cracked. She pregnant. Those words, they didn't hit like thunder. They hit like silence, with weight, with regret. I didn't yell. Didn't holler scripture. Just brought him inside, put on some hot water, and listened while he told me the parts I already knew and the ones he still couldn't admit out loud. She said she'll keep in it. He said, but she don't want no part of me. I raised an eyebrow. Why? He hesitated, stirred the sugar in his tea for too long. She said, I'm too proud. That I want to be a man but can't own my mistakes. That silence sat between us like a third person at the table. Then he said something I ain't never forget, not because of what it was, but what it wasn't. She said, she ain't tellin' nobody my name. What do you mean she ain't? I asked. She said she don't want drama. She's gonna raise him, or maybe give him to the state. I don't know. Then he looked up at me with eyes that begged me not to make him be more than he was ready to be. Just let her go, Ma. Please. Baby, I nodded. That might have been my biggest sin. Because when you nod in the face of cowardice, you lend God's silence to a man running from his own shadow. I found myself in the church basement 3 days later with Sister Mabel. Counting bulletins, but my spirit was anywhere but there. I couldn't stop thinking about that baby growing in a girl I barely knew's belly. I sent Latasha a letter. Didn't put my name on it. Just said, if you need anything, write to 246 Greenleaf. Attention. Mrs. J. Never heard back. Not for a whole year. Then one day, while rearranging the sofa cushions like it might make my sadness sit easier, I found a pale yellow envelope inside the front door. No stamp. No return. Inside was a photo. A baby, 6 months at most. Wearing a onesie scribbled with the name Josiah. And on the back, written in that neat, half-slanted handwriting I remembered from Latasha's notebook margins, "He's got Marcus's ears. I'm naming him Baker Green. Please remember him. One day, he'll come looking." Nothing else. Just those words. I sat on the floor and cried quiet. Held that photo in my hands so long the corners started to curl. But I didn't chase her. Because by then, Marcus was knee-deep in some other courtship with a girl he thought could help his public image. Someone Camille knew from her sorority. Neat, proper, clean background. And Latasha? She disappeared from that day forward. It was like she wrote herself out the narrative. But that baby, Jesus. He lived anyway, and I prayed over him every night. Sometimes I whispered his name so quiet even the devil couldn't hear me regret in my silence. The first time I saw him again, he was 20. I didn't know it was him, of course. Not right away. I'd taken Caleb to a college tour, Alabama State, I think. One of them campuses with squirrels too friendly and grass cut like the promise of legacy. And there was this boy in the admissions line, tight jaw, clean lineup. Skin brown and gold like warm paper sacks. He had a folder in one hand and a chip on his shoulder. Said excuse me when Caleb dropped his pen. That voice? Soft, but unshakable. Back then, I thought he just reminded me of young Marcus. Didn't dawn on me till days later, that might have been him. That was the beginning of what I call the flashes. The moments he'd cross into my world like water finding its way through brick. A news clip, a scholarship post, a friend of a friend saying this boy good with numbers, though nobody know where he come from. And every time, I felt it. Somehow, somewhere, that child was still growing in the shadow I helped stretch. When I told Aunt Sheen about it one summer, she listened like she always did. Eyes focused, tea in hand, judgment held but steady. And after I'd run my mouth for 10 minutes, she said, "Baby, that boy gone find you one day. And when he do, make sure you don't greet him with silence." Lord. She was right. She'll always right. I had spent so many years protecting Marcus's pride I'd starved another child's identity. Blood don't disappear. It just finds new ways to reach for the light. Now that all feels like yesterday, though it ain't. Because just last week I was sitting by a rented heater at a wedding reception, watching my granddaughter kiss a man carrying the guilt my whole family tried so hard to bury. And tears was burning my cheeks while folks danced round me like joy didn't ask questions. All I could think then was, this ain't new pain. It's old unfinished pain. And unfinished pain. It comes not late, quiet, with names it remembers even when you don't. The morning after the wedding, I woke up like the sky been holding its breath all night. That kind of stillness that don't feel peaceful, just expectant. Ain't no birds chirpin', no cars pussin', just air. Thick, like the truth waitin' by the windowsill with its arms folded. I moved real slow that morning. Not from age, but weight. The kind of weight memory puts on your bones after you admitted something out loud your spirit been tucking under for a generation. Truth ain't heavy until you carry it in daylight. Kitchen smelled like yesterday's coffee. Cold, bitter, never got brewed. Just sat there in the pot, waiting for the courage to bubble. I set water on the stove but didn't light it. Couldn't. Because all I kept seeing was Tasha's face. That flicker in her smile. The moment she said, "Can we try again?" That girl had every reason to hate me. Shoot. Every right to cut me clean out the family Bible if she wanted to. But what she did instead? She forgave Slew. And real. That hit different. Forgiveness ain't always healing. It's permission to see the wound without picking the scab. That morning, Marcus finally called. Not text. Called. His voice was clipped, like he'd been rehearsing. Hey Ma, we need to talk about the reception. I stared at the phone like he'd lost his whole mind. You mean the wedding where I got planted in the back like a wallflower and watched history drop a ring at my feet? He sighed. That long, get-to-the-point sigh that always made me want to throw a slipper. You know this ain't just about the wedding. No, Marcus. It's never just about what it looked like. It's about what you let it become. Silence. I let it stretch, 'cause sometimes silence do more convictin' than a scream. Then he cleared his throat. I just wanted to say, you were right about him. About Josiah. Oh, you finally admitting flesh and blood? There was another pause. Then, I kept thinking maybe it'll vanish if I didn't speak it. Like, if I moved forward fast enough, the past couldn't keep pace. My heart softened, just a little. Don't it work that way, does it? No, ma'am. We both stayed quiet for a minute. Maybe two. Then I said, You gone talk to him? I'm scared too. Scared of what? That he's better than me. Baby, my chest. That kind of confession don't come from ego. That come from a boy who finally realizing he ain't outrun his shadow. I didn't soften then. I told the truth. Maybe he is better than who you were, but he still needs his daddy. Then slowly, I added what I never thought I'd say out loud. And so do I. He didn't respond at first. Just a soft, hiccup breath on the line like the wind had shifted. I'll come by, he whispered. Today. No, but soon. I wanted to force it open like a slammed window. But grace ain't rush work. So I said, all right. And gently hung up before my voice cracked like it wanted to. Later that day, Joylene came by. Hair up in that messy puff she always wore on cleaning days, strands cumin loose, bless her soul. Her jeans had bleach spots and purpose. She dumped a whole plastic bag of sweet tea chicken salad in my fridge without asking. A quiet peace offering. She didn't say hello, just gave me that daughter look, half laughter, half worry. You eat today? She asked. Been eatin' truth, I replied. Could use some carbs? She rolled her eyes, then sat with me at the table. Is it true? She asked. Everything about Josiah. I looked her dead on. You know that envelope I showed you from way back? Yeah, he's the baby. Her eyes widened. Wait. Like Marcus's baby? You heard right. She laughed quietly. I knew, she whispered. Not the whole thing, but ... since the engagement. I sipped my tea. Sometimes, our gut remembers blood before our mind catches up. He ever say anything? No, but his spirit asked the question. She stood, wiped a clean countertop. You gonna tell Anaya? One day, I said. Not until the waters settle. She nodded. Anyway, ... I got a schedule to rewrite, she said. Cleaning crew just learned their supervisor's also your grandson. She smirked. I bet. She paused at the door, hugged me. You did right, Mama, even in the dark. I let her hold me. I walked circles, past the bookshelf and trophy shelf. The house was too quiet. I found my journal. Page 1 was dated 2 years after Marcus left college. That year, I learned about the teenage boy at the group home who won a poetry award as J. Green. No parents listed, just a foster mother. Mrs. Beverly Baker. I wrote, even when you choose silence, your story still grows. Thank you, Lord, for showing mine didn't die just 'cause I didn't tell it. I wrote his name, Josiah Marcus Greenbaker. Then added, you are not your daddy's secret. You are your own becoming. I closed the journal. Later that week, Tasha showed up. She brought a lemon pound cake. We sat on the porch. She handed me a photo. Her and Josiah, smiling dotties. We're choosing peace. She smiled gently. Divorced? I asked, surprised. She laughed. No, renewing. Already? I asked. She nodded serenely. With honesty this time. And the bloodlines? I asked. Love refines where we come from, she said. I wore the sage green dress again, this time with pride, not shame. Truth sets you free, but drags you through mud first. Thursday, the sky was gray. Marcus arrived, no music, just engine hum. He stood at the doorway. Ma, he said softly. I was cutting greens, steady hands. Hungry? I asked. I don't know, Ma, he said. He looked tired, deep in his soul. You don't need explanations. Sit. He sat, like time rewound. I poured sweet tea. He spoke, eyes on his glass. He's me, Ma. Me but better. You lied, I said. I know, he flinched. No, baby. I mean, you lied so well. You believed it. You signed them damn papers. Told that girl you'd support her, then let her drift like she was a sin you couldn't afford. He gripped the table edge. Did you know she was sick, Ma? I blinked. What? Latasha, she had lupus. She told me back then. But I ain't understand it. He looked up then, eyes bloodshot. And I ain't stick around to learn. That moment hurt in ways I can't even stitch into words. You sent her into this world alone, carrying your child in a body at war with itself. He nodded, silent. And then I kept going, 'cause sometimes the only mercy you can offer is truth that hurts. For almost 30 years, you let your daughter marry your son. He slammed his hand on the table, forehead dropped into his arm. I didn't mean for that to happen. Ain't that always the story? Nobody ever meaned for a baby to go unloved. A woman to go unheard. A truth to rot under layers of fake smiles and holiday photos. I let the moment hold itself. Then I stood and walked toward the drawer. Familiar one. The one Josiah's birth certificate had been sittin' in for all them years. I pulled out the envelope. Slid it across to him. He looked at it like it carried claws. Open it, I said. He did. Saw his name printed on that folded letter. Handwriting he couldn't forget if he tried. She wrote me. He asked, voice a whisper now. She left it with me. Said you'd need it when your pride finally got sleepy enough to listen. His breath hitched. Marcus, I said softly now. Look at me. He did. Are you ready to be his father now, or just his regret? He didn't answer. Just folded the paper slow and slid it into his lap like it might warm him. I want to be worthy, he finally said. You want to be free, I corrected. Worthy, take time. We gon' see if you do with the truth, not just sit in it. He nodded. And for the first time in years, I think he heard me. Not the words. The meaning. That Saturday, I called a family dinner. No announcements. No speeches. Just food. Fried catfish. Candied yams. Voices low. Eyes dartin'. Josiah sat at the end of the table like a boy giving court testimony. Tasha next to him, shoulders tight, jaw steady, chin up like the granddaughter I helped raise. Joy leaned past the cornbread without looking up. Anaya peeled peas like she ain't know her whole bloodline was tangled in the middle of a storm. Aunt Shine reached for gravy and goes, "You keep secrets long enough, child. Even the truths start to look like betrayal." Not a single fork moved for a full 6 seconds. Josiah cleared his throat. Marcus looked up. "And baby?" Right then, God stepped in. Because Marcus stood slow, took his glass of water, tapped it with his knife, and spoke. "I owe everybody in this house an apology you didn't ask for, but deserve." Silence grew teeth. His hands shook, but his voice, steady. They called her Latasha Green and had a son, my son. I chose to protect my reputation over my responsibility. Josiah looked down. "Tasha, I failed you." Tasha clenched his hand. "I thought if I never said it, it didn't exist." Josiah then understood. "I didn't just avoid a bullet, I gave birth to it." Tasha remained silent. There was silence from Aunt Sheen as well. She just gently nodded. Marcus handed Josiah a drink. "You're not perfect, and you don't ask for this. But you deserve to be shown up for who you are." Josiah closed his eyes and took a sip from the pitcher. "I started drinking from the same cup you poured." He looked at Tasha with tearful eyes. "I want to be someone you can show up for." Tasha smiled softly. "Let's make it so." Josiah changed his name to Josiah Jerome, and they lived happily ever after. Baby, names don't erase love. They honor it. He rained hard, holding back tears. She'd want you to live bravely, not hide in a name chosen by a busy caseworker. He smiled softly. That's what I needed to hear. 2 weeks later, the paperwork was filed. Official. No turning back. Josiah Charles Jerome. When that letter arrived with a gold seal, I held it like sacred scripture. Like a wound having finally healed. My name. Moving forward. No longer crawling through forgotten years. And that's when it struck me. That child didn't just change his name. He changed the story. Turned orphan into inheritor. Turned silence into signature. The family gathered that weekend at my house. Marcus offered to grill. Joylene laughed so hard she nearly spilled deviled eggs. "You haven't touched coals since Daddy left. She teased. Marcus raised his hands in surrender. "Hey, I'm a changed man now. You changed your haircut, not your skill set." Laughter. Light. I stood on the porch with my apron on, tending to lettuce and tongs in the other. And I just watched. That makes sense, you know? Sometimes the best seat isn't at the head of the table. It's the one where you can see everything. Josiah was in the yard teaching Anaya how to throw a football. Caleb was down on his knees, explaining something to Tasha on his phone. A sound like crypto and looked like she could barely make it out. Joylene burst past us with a beaming smile. "Mama," she said, sipping her lemonade. "Yes, baby?" "Thank you, Josiah." "For what?" "For letting this family fall apart." I chuckled softly. Sometimes things need to break so we can stop pretending they weren't already cracked. I rubbed his shoulder like he said he broke a crayon. It's not always about forgiveness. Sometimes it's about consistency. You don't need a title to be present, I said. You need presence to earn a title. He whispered, I'd still like it. Good, I said, since wanting better is step one. He leaned back, letting that settle. It's weird, I thought I was the heart of this family, but really I'm a chapter. A messy chapter, I added. He chuckled dry. But you know what? I said, looking at that loud, chaotic yard full of love and names that meant something more. You helped finish a story without ending at your mistake. That night, Josiah knocked on my door, cleaning, folding chairs, rinsing coolers. Quiet things men do when they don't know what words to say. He held something in his hand. A small, polished, delicate box. Give me this, he said. He placed it in front of me and stepped back. I opened it gently. Inside, his original ring. The one he dropped at the wedding. The one that clattered on the church floor and rolled toward my corner chair like it chose to land at my feet. I stared at it, without knowing what to say. He spoke quiet, but with something heavy behind it. This doesn't fit what we are anymore. I looked up. Tasha got me a new one. One with scripture carved inside. This one's got silence in it. I picked it up slowly. Rolled it between my fingers like memory itself. You Shua baby? He nodded. This belongs to you. Your mistake was a part of our story, too. I looked at that box. That first one. Josiah dropped it like guilt disguised in 14 carats. I hadn't moved it since he gave it to me. I couldn't place it, really. A symbol like that. It's heavy even when it's hollow. So I just set it back down. Wiped my hands on my apron. And started cookin'. Some days, baby, that's all a woman got. Grits and obedience. Today, I remembered him holding that box at our house. In the kitchen, next to a photo of my mama and Josiah. A symbol of our story. The ones we make together. That woman hasn't spoken to me without judgment since Clinton was in office. But I said yes. Not for her, for him. Because when a man asks to fix what he cracked, you give him space. They arrived one by one, Joylene with Tissios. Josiah and Taisha dressed for honest church. Marcus nervous but ironed, and Camille leaving judgment in the car. We sat in a circle, uncomfortable but ready for honesty. Marcus stood first, trembling, admitting his wrongs without decoration. Josiah listened, revealing his hope for his father's return and offering a chance for Marcus to be a man. Marcus cracked without crying, sitting in his shame. Tasha stood next, voice soft. Tasha confronted Camille about hiding Ora's true identity to protect an image. Josiah shared a new ring with Run Your Race well engraved, hoping Marcus could finish his race, acknowledging Marcus gave him his eyes but not his name. As the night ended, Marcus thanked Camille for holding a space he never honored. Josiah expressed his desire to take a maiden name that carried him. The sky opened, and rain claimed the night. I lit a candle by the window and watched the storm dance with knowing. We had weathered bigger. And now, ain't nothing left but the cleaning. But you know what, child? There's a difference between clean and cleansed. And this family, we was finally letting the water reach the corners. I don't care what them YouTube cleaning gurus try to tell you. Clean ain't just what the eye can't see. No, ma'am. Your kitchen can sparkle like a showroom, but if the trash under the sink still stinks, all you got is scented denial. That's what was sitting in my spirit the morning after we had that family truth-telling dinner. I mean, everybody said what needed to be said. All the secrets spilt like hot grease. But now we was standing in the mess afterward. And baby, that's where the real work begins. I woke up to the sound of Joylene knocking on the screen door like she paid rent. "Mama," she called, "you up?" "Where else I'm gone be?" I mumbled, putting my robe on and reaching for them house shoes with the worn slick soles. I opened the door, and there she was, hair in a bonnet, purse in one hand, tray of 7-Up cake in the other. "You didn't even wait till 9. Had to come before the guilt started talking louder than logic?" I stepped aside. "So this a guilt visit?" She came in, dropped the tray on the table like she was claiming it for Jesus, and raised an eyebrow at me. "You okay?" "You bring cake too?" asked that. "Don't get wise, Mama. I'm trying to make sure you slept last night. You sleep much after a dust storm?" The silence between us gave the answer. She poured tea, didn't ask, just poured. Sat down across from me. "Marcus texted me last night," she said. "Oh?" "Said he's considering Lavian politics." I raised my brows. Well, pride finally ran out of battery. "Huh?" Joylene smirked, but then got serious again. "Said he's tired of wearing a life that don't fit him no more." I nodded slow. "That's a good kind of tired." We sipped. She leaned in. "What about Camille?" "What about her?" "You ever forgive her for the way she treated you?" I just looked at her. Not angry, not hurt, just wordless. You know she was raised to believe shame meant silence? Shame don't justify disrespect. Joylene bit her lip. "She's trying. Slowly, baby steps. I ain't gonna roll a red carpet out for somebody who only now figured out I'm furniture with feelings," I said. Then stood. I got shirts to hang dry. Out back, the morning sun was just hitting the clothesline. My fingers worked like it was just another Tuesday. Like truth hadn't tore our name tags off yesterday and demanded new ones. I was halfway through pinning up Marcus's old collared shirt, the one he used to wear to prayer breakfasts, when I heard gravel crunching from out front. I leaned a little peeking. Josiah's truck. My heart gave a single thump like it do when memory turns active again. He wore cargo pants and a wrinkled t-shirt saying, "All this work and still broke." He walked up to the fence and asked, "You free?" I replied, "No court summons today, just these shirts drying." He entered respectfully. "My mama talked about your greens," he said. "Latasha?" I asked. "Yeah, like holy ground," he replied. I was touched. "She loved my greens," he nodded. "She said I'd sit at your table one day." Josiah mentioned Marcus. "Good. His empire will fall," he said. I let truth sing. Josiah helped with the bricks silently. He then mentioned a necklace. The one with the mustard seed inside. My mother's necklace, given to me in 78. She had it before she died, he said. "Can I have it?" I placed it in his palm. "This a wait," I said. "I know," he replied. Later, Camille came unannounced with okra and tomatoes. "Don't got much to say," she said, "but I thought maybe we could sit." We did. "Dirt only heals what it don't bury," she said. I looked at the okra, fresh and stubborn like truth. Then up at Camille. "And what do you say?" I asked. She blinked. Sighed. "I say I judged you based on my mother's stories, not your hands." I nodded. "That's a start." We cooked side by side. Didn't talk too much. Didn't need to. Sometimes standing in the kitchen with someone is more honest than all the apologies written in sermons. By the time the stew was bubbling, I looked at her and asked, "You ever gone tell Tasha you kept me out of the program on purpose?" She winced, backed up slightly. "I will, soon." I just nodded. Let it sit. Some pots boil before you're ready to stir. That Saturday, we cleaned the office. Ora's angels needed a reset too. I stood over the counter as Joylene and Josiah cleaned out old invoices and retired uniforms. Tati, bless her, hung new canvases on the wall, photos of all the women we employed over the years. Their names underneath in gold cursive. Women who'd started with shame and left with shine. Josiah came over, touched one of the frames. "Didn't know y'all worked with Mrs. Henrietta Barnes?" he whispered. "Yes, baby. She was our first hire." He smiled. "She used to give me extra pudding at lunch when I was fostered at Jefferson Center. Said I reminded her of somebody she couldn't wait to meet." I smiled so slow and deep. "You reminded all of us." Before he left that day, he paused, held up one of the old uniforms, the starch-stiff kind we phased out years ago. "This, the one you wore when—" "The funeral, Mr. He turned it over in his hands. "This, this, don't look like a janitor's uniform." I smiled. "Because it ain't. It's armor." Josiah went quiet, then said, "I'm keeping it, frame it, not to forget where I came from, but to remember who showed up while everybody else waited for convenience." The first time Josiah ever introduced himself as Josiah Jerome in public, we were standing in front of the city commissioner. It was at a small business renewal event. Nothing flashy, just some city folks giving plaques and shaking hands, trying their best not to look uncomfortable when the black-owned vendors showed up in numbers. We was there for paperwork. But what we got was recognition. Soon as the commissioner looked up from the form, she said, "Are you related to Ora Mae Jerome?" And baby, Josiah didn't even flinch, didn't stutter. He said, "Yes, ma'am. That's my grandmother, and the founder of everything I ever grew from." I had to turn away for a second. Pretended to dig in my purse. But really, my throat had gone tight again, like praise still surprised me even after all these years. Afterwards, we sat outside on the courthouse steps, just him and me, sun stretching across the cement, birds flying overhead like they was on assignment. He pulled out his copy of the new business card. Jerome and Sons Logistics. Underneath it, a division of Ora's cleaning angels. That name, nested right under his. He looked at me and said, "We ain't scrubbing floors anymore." "No, baby," I laughed, "but we sure know how to wash away what don't belong." Back at home that night, I found myself in the attic, searching, not for anything I needed, just feeling memories start to itch. Found a box labeled Ministry Dinner. Untaped it slow. Inside, old flyers for community potlucks I used to help run with the church. Pictures faded, crinkled. Women with curlers bouncing under church hats. Men standing proud in suits that hung slightly off their shoulders. In the bottom corner of that box, I found an old notebook. My mother's, hardcover, edges curled. One of them books she used to write proverbs in, things too true for Sunday sermons, but too honest for company. One page read, "Redemption don't wait for applause. It just walks in, quiet and clean." Another said, "You don't raise children out of guilt. You raise 'em out of grit. And when guilt finally knocks, you better have dinner on the stove and truth on the table." Lord, have mercy. Mama always wrote like life was easy. I tucked that notebook under my arm and brought it to the porch. Sat in the swing. Let it sway me. Back and forth. Back into every memory. And forward into every name that was finally rightful again. The next week, Joylene and Josiah finished painting the new training center. Teal trim, gold-accented signage, reading Ora's legacy room. Used for meeting new hires. Used for teach-in value, not just vacuum patterns. Josiah brought in a framed quote, hung it center above the welcome desk. It read, "We don't clean houses. We clear space for dignity to live again." People clutched their chest when they read it. Some just smiled. Some cried. But the way one of our new recruits, young girl, 17, fresh out of a tense situation, looked at it. She stared like it was a message straight from the god of second chances. Sundays got sweeter. Tasha was back, lead-in praise team. That voice of hers sounded like time finally settled in her throat. Anaya sat with Joylene now, helped count tides, asked big questions like, how do you know when forgiveness is real? I told her, you know it's real when you stop needing the other person to suffer. She blinked slow and nodded. Didn't speak again for 5 minutes. Which, for that child, was a long time. And Marcus? He wasn't perfect. Still had moments his pride got itchy. Still struggled in rooms he used to own with words and platforms. But one morning, he showed up with a gift. A literal key. Said, this opens Unit 7 in the business park off Clyde Street. What's in it? I asked. He smiled. Soft. Real. Nothing yet. I called the landlord and paid the first 6 months. Josiah said he wants to start shipping services for working moms who sell their crafts and side hustles. You always said ministry ain't just gospel, it's groceries. I touched that key like it was made of memory.